After transmigrating into the Tyrant's puppy, I completely let my nature run wild. The Tyrant's favorite concubine? I ate first. The Tyrant's secret? I spread it around. The Tyrant went to sleep? I crept in and made a nest. Later, the favorite concubine ran away, and her reputation became even worse, to the point that rumors spread that the Tyrant liked to sleep with dogs. When I realized that I had gone too far, I grabbed my small bag and was about to run away when the Tyrant caught me. He raised his eyebrows and teased me, "It's time to verify those rumors." As soon as I opened my eyes, I was forced to accept a card to experience being a tyrant. I saw beauties wearing thin clothes kneeling on the ground, their heads bowed very low, trembling so much that their slender bodies could fall down at any moment. And all of these beauties were my food. Don't misunderstand, this eat is not the same as that eat. Not long ago, the Tyrant had given the order to chop these beauties into pieces and feed them to the dogs. This lowly one is unfortunate enough to have accidentally transmigrated into this dog's body. I walked in a circle in front of the beauties with short, clack clack clack, steps. This figure, this appearance. I can't finish it. I can't finish it. Wherever I go, I leave behind traces of saliva. Thinking back to Li Yan, my entire life has been glorious and brilliant. Seeing this scene is truly my blessing. Why haven't you made a move yet? Can't you wait to see that stupid dog? The Tyrant's cold voice came from above, instantly pulling me out of my infatuation with beauty.
Aww.
Heaven and earth can testify, I only like to admire beauty. I absolutely don't want to chop these beauties up to feed to dogs. After all, this meat is really inedible. I wiped my mouth and approached the Tyrant. Although the Tyrant was a bit cruel and tyrannical, he was also truly beautiful. His features seemed to be exquisitely carved, and he was casually draped in a black cloak. Little Lizzie stood beside him and bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty, there's only this puppy left in the entire palace, there's no way he can eat all of this." The reason why there was only me, this unweaned puppy, was because the other dogs had all died from overeating. I rubbed against the Tyrant's leg flatteringly.
Aww.
I didn't want to eat. The Tyrant glanced at my short body. What's the point of keeping it? The disdain in his words was clearly visible. I raised my head and looked at him from left to right. Acting spoiled a bit. It's not completely useless, I still have a cute side. The Tyrant glanced at me, pull it down and chop it off. Did I say something wrong? Little Lizzie hurriedly knelt down. "Your Majesty, please reconsider, although it is a bit stupid, but it can still grow up. In the future, you can kill as many people as you want. If you can't bury them all, you can still feed it." Little Lizzie, I thank you. The Tyrant slowly took a sip of tea. Little Lizzie very cleverly continued, "Your Majesty, if we torture the ministers later without a dog, wouldn't it make people laugh?" Didn't anyone ask the dog's opinion? The Tyrant's slender fingers tapped lightly on the table, seemingly thinking. I didn't know if it was because I was too hungry or the Tyrant's fingers looked too delicious. I couldn't help but start sucking. "Your Majesty, this dog." Everyone was so scared that their hearts felt like they were hanging upside down. The Tyrant lowered his eyes, coldly glancing at me, his eyes devoid of any warmth, extremely cold. "Want to die?" Smack! A sound startled me and I unconsciously opened my mouth. Seeing the unknown thing on the Tyrant's finger, I fearfully licked it clean. Just as I was about to pull my tongue back, his two fingers clamped it. "Let me think about how to kill you." The voice was like a devil whispering, cruel and cold, giving me goosebumps. Little Lizzie hurriedly walked over, his voice seemed urgent. "Your Majesty, the puppy is still young. It opened its eyes and saw you as soon as it opened them, so it thought you were its mother, it's just hungry." Well said, Don't say it again next time. Although I really wanted to refute, but now the dog's life was more important. I pretended to be very dependent, using my baby teeth to lightly bite the tyrant. Gurk, my stomach growled at the right time. It turned out that I was really hungry. It wasn't that I was lusting after beauty. The tyrant's eyes glanced back and forth between me and Xiaolizi, the depths of his eyes churned with hidden currents, his entire body exuding a terrifying, gloomy aura. Everyone lay down on the ground, not daring to breathe heavily. It was over. Today I would have to die here. At this moment, out of nowhere, a secret guard appeared and whispered in the tyrant's ear. The tyrant slowly took out a towel to wipe his fingers. Let them in. The secret guard received the order and went down. Not long after, the ministers entered the hall one by one. Greetings to your majesty. Everyone knelt on the ground to pay respect to the tyrant. Even I was pressed down by Xiaolizi. Since when did even dogs have to kowtow? The tyrant lazily glanced at him, not allowing him to stand up. Do you know why I summoned you here? The ministers looked at each other. Finally, an elder spoke up. Your Majesty, currently the great 10 kingdoms under your Majesty's rule are prosperous and flourishing, but the succession has not yet been decided. We are very worried, so we chose beauties to enter the palace. We did not expect this to make your Majesty angry. It is our fault. The officials echoed, we know our sins. No wonder the ministers had to choose beauties to enter the palace. It was really because the tyrant was too perverted. Ever since the tyrant Bamo Wu ascended the throne, he thought of ways to torture the ministers every day, causing the ministers to complain that they could not bear it. The tyrant laughed coldly. We have our own arrangements. There is no need for you to worry. If you don't want it, tyrant, give it to me, give it to me. Especially the beauty standing at the end, it is not too much to say that she is a beauty that can topple a kingdom. Among 100 flowers in bloom, her flower is the most brilliant. Not only is her appearance beautiful, her figure is also amazing. Slurp. Remembering the feeling of just touching, saliva couldn't help but flow from the corner of my mouth. Suddenly a cold air ran from my tailbone straight to the top of my head, instinctively making me shiver. I raised my head to look around. Strange, it was clearly the middle of a hot noon, yet I felt a little cold. My gaze shifted, and our eyes met with the tyrant's. Scared to the point that my hair stood on end. Beside me, Xiaolizi was even more flustered as he carried me down from Bamo Wu's robe. While wiping my small footprints on the tyrant's dragon robe, Xiaolizi muttered, Ancestor, you should be careful, you are the last dog of the great 10 kingdoms. Rare things are precious, so wouldn't I be able to freely walk around the great 10 kingdoms? Before I could even grin, Xiaolizi continued, if you want to live, you have to live until you can reproduce. According to the degree of rarity, Xiaolizi would not let anything happen to me for the time being. But dogs reach reproductive age by about a year, so wouldn't I only live for a year? I grabbed the tyrant's robe and wiped my tears. How pitiful, only living for a year. Just think about it, a beautiful young girl in her prime like me was turned into a dog, and only lived for a year. It was heartbreaking to think about it. The tyrant's deadly gaze fell on me again. I thought to myself that I wouldn't live long anyway. I raised my head, baring my teeth at the tyrant.
Aww.
It's fine, I will make your great 10 kingdoms extinct. Humph. The corner of the tyrant's lips curled up strangely, but he didn't punish me, only allowing them to stand up. I puffed out my chest, afraid now. After a while, the tyrant looked at everyone, but as an emperor, resolving the worries of my beloved ministers is also what an emperor should do. The tyrant dragged his long dragon robe in front of the last beauty, his slender fingers lifting her chin. Then I will make you a noble consort. After all, among these flowers, you are the most radiant. Why does the tyrant think the same way as me? The beauty quickly thanked, Your Majesty, this commoner Baili do thanks you for your grace. Everyone cheered, "Your Majesty is wise." Throughout the generations, beauties who were noticed by the emperor had to gradually rise in rank. Being appointed as a noble consort upon entering the palace was truly unprecedented. The ministers looked very satisfied. This time, the harem had a favored concubine, and His Majesty no longer had much energy to torment them. However, they still thought too much, and the tyrant still punished the ministers with 3 years of salary before ending this drama. 2. Although the tyrant did not cut me down, he ordered me to be locked in the firewood storage room and not given food. Little Lizzie secretly stuffed me a hard bun. "You have to endure it. I have already requested a male dog from another country. If there are no surprises, it will arrive in about a year." Me. "Don't mention this anymore, we are still friends." Hungry and sleepy all day, I ignored Xiao Lizzie, hugged the bun and munched on it while falling asleep. I woke up cold in the middle of the night, saw the Qianqing palace in the distance, brightly lit. I slipped through the crack in the door to avoid the eunuchs on night watch who came in. I originally planned to follow the principle of, if I can't sleep, don't expect to sleep either, to disturb him, but it seemed like the tyrant couldn't sleep well either. At this moment, his forehead was covered in sweat, his mouth kept groaning, "Kill you, I want to kill you." To tell the truth, the tyrant was also pitiful. Because his mother died early, he had no support, and was often beaten and scolded by the princes. Those servants also humiliated him and didn't give him food. At a young age he had to kill dogs for meat to survive. Why does the tyrant think the same way as me? The beauty quickly thanked, "Your Majesty, this commoner by Li Du thanks you for your grace." Everyone cheered, "Your Majesty is wise." Throughout the generations, beauties who were noticed by the emperor had to gradually rise in rank. Being appointed as a noble consort upon entering the palace was truly unprecedented. The ministers looked very satisfied. This time, the harem had a favored concubine, and His Majesty no longer had much energy to torment them. However, they still thought too much, and the tyrant still punished the ministers with 3 years of salary before ending this drama. 2. Although the tyrant did not cut me down, he ordered me to be locked in the firewood storage room and not given food. Little Lizzie secretly stuffed me a hard bun. "You have to endure it. I have already requested a male dog from another country. If there are no surprises, it will arrive in about a year." Me. "Don't mention this anymore, we are still friends." Hungry and sleepy all day, I ignored Xiao Lizzie, hugged the bun and gnawed on it while falling asleep. I woke up cold in the middle of the night, saw the Qianqing palace in the distance with its lights on. I slipped through the crack in the door to avoid the eunuchs on night watch who came in. I originally planned to follow the principle of, if I can't sleep, you can't sleep either, to disturb him, but it seemed like the tyrant couldn't sleep well either. At this moment, his forehead was full of sweat, his mouth kept groaning, "Kill you, I want to kill you." To tell the truth, the tyrant was also pitiful. Because his mother died early, he had no support, and was often beaten and scolded by the princes. Those servants also humiliated him and didn't feed him. At a young age he had to kill dogs for meat to survive. I squatted beside the pillow, looking at that demon-like face full of pain. After a moment of hesitation, I still used my claws to wake him up. The tyrant opened his eyes full of murderous intent. "Where are you? Is anyone coming here tonight?" The eunuch outside the door hurriedly rolled in and knelt down. "Your Majesty, I was guarding the door and didn't see anyone come in." The tyrant touched the cheek that I had hit. "Get down." Funny how the tyrant could not have guessed that the culprit was right under his blanket. The tyrant's bed was really warm and comfortable. I rubbed my body and quickly fell asleep. I was once again awakened by the cold, and I was dazedly searching for a source of heat. I really found it, but this heat source is too hot. I uncomfortably swung my claws and hit it. In my daze, a painful groan seemed to echo, but I was too sleepy and just wanted to find a comfortable place, so I ignored it. After all, sleeping was the most important thing. However, just as I fell asleep, the tyrant opened his eyes. He looked down once and then closed them again. Later I learned that the reason the tyrant didn't throw me out was because having me by his side could restrain his desire to kill. The tyrant was sick, he had killed people since he was young and was always dominated by the desire to kill. He killed during the day, and his dreams were all about killing, killing, killing. That night I snuck in and woke him up, accidentally letting him sleep well. From then on, when I snuck into his bedroom to sleep, he would turn a blind eye. The maids in charge of cleaning often saw hair on the tyrant's bedding. I don't know how it spread, but the rumor that the tyrant liked to sleep with dogs spread throughout the capital, even to neighboring countries. Because of this rumor, I was put in a sack and beaten by Li Du, and almost taken away. In order to protect me, this only flame, the imperial physician and Xiao Lizi required the tyrant to live and eat with me. They said that the dragon energy on the tyrant's body could save my dog's life. If the tyrant was so easy to talk to, he wouldn't be a tyrant. He directly ordered me to be buried alive. The tyrant has no heart, let alone having a sleeping companion. I'm just a soft and adorable puppy after all. Yet he still had the heart to give such an order. But I have little Lizi as my talisman. I only saw little Lizi kneeling in front of the tyrant, banging his head. Your Majesty, back then, when we conquered the world, the puppy's grandfather led us to find the enemy's food supply. Even if there was no credit, there was still hardship. Actually, it wasn't just that. That year my grandfather not only found the enemy's food, but also saved the tyrant's life. This was also the reason why Xiao Lizi tried so hard to keep me. The tyrant glanced at my half-dead appearance, not knowing if his conscience was still intact or if Xiao Lizi was begging too much. He finally reluctantly agreed. So reluctantly that the tyrant had to make a 3-point agreement with me, not to touch him, not to make noise, and not to cause trouble. I'm dying of laughter. Do you expect a dog to obey the rules? I'm afraid you're daydreaming. Just like now. The tyrant was reviewing the memorial. I was lying on his shoulder sniffing him. There was a pleasant, light fragrance on his face, like the scent of green grass. I loved sniffing. Sometimes I accidentally let my drool get all over his face. Of course, this came at a price. Here, the tyrant's face was as black as a pot's butt, grabbing me by the neck and throwing me onto the dragon bed. Oh you, I cried out weakly, then lay still on the bed without moving. At first, the tyrant was still approving memorials as usual. After about a cup of tea, he frowned and walked to the bed, discovering that I had closed my eyes. He pushed me, dead? My small body swayed appropriately with his movements, not making a sound. A slender finger probed my nose for breath. I held my breath. Puppy? The tyrant's deep voice was mixed with a barely perceptible trace of panic. Someone, tie up the imperial physician and bring him here. After a riot, the tyrant gave up on the rules, letting me do whatever I wanted. From then on, I lived my days curled up in the tyrant's robe to go to court, and at night, I lay on the tyrant's 8-pack abs to train my body. I thought these good days could at least last for a while, but I didn't expect it to end so suddenly that it would end tomorrow. Today the tyrant is free, go fishing for orchids and listen to singing. I lie on the tyrant's lap, attentively watching the beauty dancing in the middle. The beauty's slits are very bold, her long white legs appear and disappear with the dance. What a delicate body, each flirtatious glance makes people fall in love. Today I must be a lovesick dog. I find a comfortable position in the tyrant's arms, use my small claws to reach the wine cup on the table. Take a few sips. Oh, how refreshing. Beauties must go hand in hand with fine wine. A cold voice rings out from above, no need for a dog's mouth anymore? I stiffen my neck and look back.
Oh no.
Too indulgent. I drank the tyrant's wine by mistake. But what's the matter? Don't think I don't know that the tyrant ordered to speed up the progress with the male dog, shortening from 1 year to half a year, and we can reach the great 10 kingdoms. I'll knock over your wine cup. Are you in such a hurry to let me mate? Without waiting to see if the tyrant would get angry, I whooshed out. Fortunately, the tyrant was in hiding, making it convenient for me to escape. But why was Bai Li Du also outside the palace? She put him in a sack again. Hoo, how could I fall into the same hole twice? Bai Li Du's vicious voice echoed from outside the sack. Beat him for me, beat him to death.
Aw.
Don't, I'm afraid of pain. I quickly used my claws to scratch, trying to tear the sack to escape. But the more I struggled, the harder they hit me. The pain spread throughout my entire body. After living 2 lifetimes, this was the first time I knew what it felt like to be numb with pain. Bai Li Du, I swear I will never live under the same sky with you. I reached out to touch my butt. Hoo, there was a big lump. Wait a minute. Looking at the slender fingers before my eyes, I was stunned. Had I turned into a human again? Before she could rejoice, an urgent voice rang out from outside the door. Auntie, the lady is in so much pain that she can't speak properly. Let this servant go in and take a look. Your Highness? I carefully moved to look at the bronze mirror. In the mirror was an elegant and graceful young woman, with an extremely beautiful appearance, about 15 or 16 years old. No wonder I felt familiar. It turned out that I had transmigrated into Bai Li Du, but why was there only the scene of eating chicken dung in the original owner's memory? What normal person would only remember these things? I've already brought the medicine for your Highness, you can leave. Following the footsteps approaching, the door creaked open. The person who entered was Bai Li Du's aunt, Mo Dexian. She didn't have any attitude of respecting master and servant, only talking about work. Sir only gives your Highness a 1-month time limit. Then she took out a brocade bag from her sleeve. This is the antidote. Although I didn't understand what was going on, I still took it and smelled it. There was a faint medicinal smell on the brocade bag. Combined with what Mo Dexian said, perhaps this was a buffer medicine to suppress a certain type of poison for a short period of time. No need to be so cautious. If my lord wanted someone dead, there would be no need to go to such trouble. Mo Dexian looked at my movements and said disdainfully, "What if it doesn't work in a month? My lord will give up the chess piece, the Empress." She paused for a moment. The antidote will no longer be provided. Meaning to leave me to fend for myself? Sigh, I didn't expect that no matter how I went around, I still couldn't escape my fate of death. I toyed with my brocade bag. Your aunt's attitude has somewhat affected this palace's mood. I patted her shoulder. If this palace said that because your aunt didn't have any attitude of being a slave, it affected this palace's unwillingness to continue carrying out the mission, how do you think my lord will punish you? Along the way, I had asked Mo Dexian about the mission I had to do, and also learned that the tyrant Bai Mo Wu was still investigating the murderer of the puppy. It was really complicated. I knew who the murderer was, but how could I take revenge? Could it be that he would kill me to help himself feel better? The lively chatter pulled me back from my thoughts. I raised my head to look. The ministers had already left court. Groups of 3 or 2 walked together. The most prominent were the 2 who walked one in front and one behind on the road, as if they were deliberately walking alone to avoid suspicion. I picked up my teacup and said casually, "That fastest minister must be strictly managed by the madam." Looking at his hurried appearance, he must be in a hurry to go home to see his wife. The aunt followed my gaze, turned her head back with a strange expression. "Your Highness, that is your father. Your mother has been a nun for 3 years. The original owner didn't even remember the basic things, only remembered the difficult things. I wonder if Mo Dexian has any doubts about me. I took a sip of tea, looked around, and continued to ask, "Oh, that last person looks familiar. I don't remember who he is." My aunt squinted at me, looking at me probingly. Your Highness, that's the regent. Seeing that I had achieved my goal, I threw the cup on the ground with all my might. It's my aunt who did wrong. If my aunt had prepared a set of basic documents about the ministers for me, I wouldn't have failed to complete my mission until now. Emo de Chien panicked and knelt down on the broken pieces, blood staining her white dress red. Your Highness, please calm down, it's this servant's negligence. What's all the noise about? An annoyed voice rang out from behind. I turned my head. The tyrant was still as evil as usual, but his eyes did not waver at all, looking exactly like an emotionless statue. I don't know why, but seeing him like this made my heart ache a little, but thinking about what he had done made me angry. It must be uncomfortable to sleep together without me by your side, right? You put the little dog on the schedule, you deserve to have no spirit. Humph. Before I could finish complaining, the tyrant had already grabbed my hand. His strength was very strong, his jet black eyes stared at me. What was this tyrant planning to do? Did he know that Bai Li Du was the culprit who killed the little dog? Was he coming here to silence me? But I wasn't Bai Li Du. It hurt so much, the tyrant's strength was about to crush my hand. Unable to bear the pain, I gritted my teeth and softly begged, Your Majesty, please be gentle, you hurt me. The strength in his hand loosened a little, but it was only a little. The pilot acted spoiled. I rubbed my wrist that was painfully grabbed by him. When I looked back I saw that his eyes were red. The morning sunlight shone on his face. A feeling of brokenness came over me. How fragile the tyrant looked at this moment. I wonder if a punch can break it. The next second, I was held in the tyrant's arms. The smell of male hormones immediately filled my sense of smell. I sniffed. It was still the familiar smell of green grass, claws, no, hands, reflexively scratching. The tyrant stiffened for a moment, then suddenly pushed me away. Knowing that I was at fault, I very tactfully took a few steps back away from the tyrant. I couldn't be blamed. When I was a dog, I was used to lying on the tyrant's body and moving my hands and feet. I couldn't fix it for now. But to be honest, the feeling of touching with hands was much better than using claws. I glanced over, not knowing if it was because of the sunlight or because of my unconscious action just now. I could clearly see the tyrant's earlobes gradually turning red. At this moment, the tyrant looked exactly like a pure young man who was teased and didn't dare to speak. While I was daydreaming, little Lizzie slowly walked over and reported, Your Majesty, I've placed the puppies outside the palace. As soon as he finished speaking, a yell 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 sound echoed from afar. I only saw a bunch of furry little animals like balls pop 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 with their barely visible short legs rolling over. So cute, I just wanted to squish them to death. Emo de Chien saw me excited and said, Your Majesty, this batch of dogs are Tibetan Mastiffs imported from a neighboring country. Your Majesty intended to use them for breeding, but unfortunately, the little dogs were beaten to death by Bai Li Du. I wonder if the tyrant would remember the super cute little dog that once warmed his bed in the quiet of the night. The tyrant's tall figure paused, then continued to drag his long dragon robe in front of the dogs. At this moment, he had regained his usual cold demeanor. At this moment, a small dog, swaying, ran towards the tyrant. Seeing that it was about to climb onto the tail of the dragon robe, suddenly, the tyrant took a long step, avoiding the small dog, then ordered, Chase these dogs 3 feet away from me. Very good, tyrant, you have maintained the purity of the dragon robe. I have decided, I will continue to use the hem of your robe as a means of transportation. I also don't know if the tyrant can still pull it now that I sit on it. Sigh, I only thought that, after all, I am no longer a small dog that can freely play around on the tyrant's body. Glancing at the tyrant's pursed lips, I don't know what he is thinking. After a while, in the imperial garden, other than the barking of dogs, no one dared to make a sound. Even their breathing had to be controlled in frequency. I'm afraid that if just one careless breath disturbed the tyrant's thoughts, they could lose their heads. This strange atmosphere lasted until the tyrant returned to the Qianqing Palace before ending. Your Highness, at this time we should take advantage of the victory to take care of His Majesty. It will be beneficial for our future actions. Just as I was about to climb into bed, Mo Dishan started to nag like an old woman beside me. I arranged my robe. Okay, you go prepare some snacks for me. It was just the right time to see if I could shamelessly sleep on the tyrant's dragon bed, who told him that his bed was the most comfortable bed in the Great Wing Kingdom. Your Highness, this servant will go now. Looking at Mo Dishan's happy footsteps, two figures appeared in my mind, one behind the other. The Prime Minister by Li Heng was good at literature, the Regent Mo de Kong was good at martial arts. Everyone knew that these two were sworn enemies, each minding their own business, neither liked the other. But, why did I keep feeling something was strange? Until we were close to the Qianqing Palace, I still couldn't think of anything, until I bumped into two ants of different species supporting each other for a piece of cake. I suddenly realized. Bok Lai Heng, Mac Dac Kong. Who could have guessed that these people who were seemingly sworn enemies were secretly allies? I walked into the tyrant's bedroom with a heavy heart, then sat down in front of him with a heavy heart. I wanted to say something but stopped. I wanted to stop and said something. The tyrant was reviewing a memorial. At this moment he had taken off his dragon robe and replaced it with a crescent-colored brocade robe, looking somewhat like a leisurely young master. I pushed the bowl of soup forward. Your Majesty, I came here to ask you a question. The tyrant did not raise his head, and said coldly, yes, speak. In the story, the two of you were originally enemies. Why did you end up together? Thinking about it over and over again, I could only think of this way to remind the tyrant. The tyrant narrowed his eyes. He did not open his mouth to speak, only looked at me, filled with pressure. His fingers tapped lightly on the table. I knew this was an unconscious movement when he was thinking. After a long while, he put the memorial aside, his thin lips parted, as if he was talking to me and also to himself, mostly because of the greater benefit than the feelings between us. I breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that he had taken this matter to heart. I stood up. Thank you, Your Majesty, I will take my leave first. No need, stay and serve the king. My foot slipped. I turned my head in disbelief. I serve the king? There was such a good thing? I only intended to come and rub the bed, but I didn't expect to be able to rub. What a surprise! The tyrant looked at the bowl of soup, his meaning hard to guess. Isn't this what my beloved concubine brought me to nourish the soup? Oh my God, I took it out and it turned out to be oxymortal soup. What luck do I have? It seems that even the heavens are helping me. The saying goes that the will of heaven is the greatest. I retracted my legs, turned my head and pressed the tyrant down on the dragon bed, my face looking shy. Your Majesty, it's getting late. A moment of spring is worth 1,000 pieces of gold. The tyrant's black face pushed me away. Watch your behavior. Too gentle, so he is not satisfied? I moved my claws a bit, blinked my tattered robe. Your Majesty, do you like this kind of behavior? The tyrant held the lining tightly, embarrassed and angry. Someone, throw Bai Li Shao out for me. Your Majesty, whatever style you like, just say it, this concubine can satisfy you. The palace door cut off my strange screams. I was grabbed by the arm by a palace maid and thrown out of Qianqing Palace. I brushed off the dust, and muttered curses as I walked. I leisurely drank tea and sat in the pavilion to continue spying on Bai Mo Wu. It had been 20 days since the last time I saw the tyrant. I also did not know why, but every time I had something to look for him, I would just happen to encounter the tyrant not in the palace. I secretly sighed. Without the tyrant's peerless beauty, what meaning would life have? The figure behind the fake mountain moved slightly. I smiled, continued to sigh. I miss the tyrant, his abs are so good. I wonder if they still have 8 packs. The tyrant gritted his teeth. Bai Li Shao. In your head, besides that lewd trash, is there nothing else to think about? I pretended to be surprised, just as I was about to open my mouth. Your Majesty, so you're here? The one who spoke was Bai Li Heng. He was sweating profusely as he ran towards me. The words Bai Li Heng once said to the original owner suddenly flashed through my mind. Don't play tricks, remember that you're just an imposter. Imposter? The original owner's original life was always orderly, unlike time travel and body snatching. Then there was only one possibility: the original owner had replaced someone in life? I exchanged glances with the Tyrant. Bai Li Heng directly past me, stopped in front of Bai Mo Wu and saluted. Your Majesty, I have something important to report. Bai Mo Wu frowned. Don't you see that your beloved concubine is here? Bai Li Heng turned to me and saluted. I pay my respects to your highness. I waved my hand, signaling them to quickly discuss their important matters. I was really curious as to what important thing had happened that could have caused my fake father to panic like this. After all, the old man was famous for his smiling tiger face. Your Highness, autumn is almost here. You must be careful not to catch a cold. Mo Dixuan stepped in and poured me some more hot tea. I knew she was reminding me not to forget my duty. Time really flies. I didn't expect to have to face a tense moment of life and death. I took out the brocade bag from my sleeve and looked at it. It was the delay medicine that Mo Dixuan gave me last time. Ever since Mo Dixuan gave it to me, I hadn't taken it yet. It was almost the end of the month now and my body was still fine. I even felt like killing Mo Dixuan wouldn't be a problem. I didn't think they would give me fake medicine. What exactly was the problem? Stealing military orders, delaying drugs, counterfeit goods. Is there any connection between these things? Thinking back and forth until my head ached, I leaned on the table and looked at the tall and sturdy figure in the distance, just wanting to be a happy useless person, being well-fed, eating my fill and thinking less, having no worries every day. On the other side, that person seemed to have some feeling, glancing towards me. Mo Dixuan saw my dejected appearance. She showed her hatred for not being able to turn iron into steel. Your Highness needs to complete the task quickly, otherwise the poison will become more and more unbearable towards the end of the month. I lowered my eyes. If this palace can't complete it, will someone else come to do this task? Mo Dixuan replied very naturally, that's right, Your Highness, the Lord will arrange for someone to replace you to continue completing the task. Counterfeit, replacement. My eyes suddenly lit up. Auntie, you stay here and watch over His Majesty for a bit. I'll go prepare the tools. Yes, Your Majesty. Hurriedly returning to the bedchamber, I spoke to the heir, checked to see if Bai Li Heng has twin sisters. Yes. Along with a gust of wind, the sound also disappeared without a trace. The information showed that Bai Li Heng had indeed given birth to a pair of sisters. The older sister was named Bai Li Du, the younger sister was named Bai Li Shao. Bai Li Shao was born later due to lack of oxygen for too long, resulting in her intelligence being only like that of a 5-year-old child. Looking at this, I suddenly remembered the story of the original owner being so hungry that she ate chicken droppings. Her condition was not like that of a mentally retarded person, but rather like she had lost her soul, living in a daze. In order to hide this shameful matter, Prime Minister Bai Li Heng had announced to the outside world that he would only give birth to one daughter. As I had predicted, the last time the poison took effect, Bai Li Du really died of poison at home. After Bai Li Heng secretly handled the matter, he half coaxed and half threatened that Bai Li Shao had to give it to him first after obtaining the military order. Unfortunately, at that time, I had already entered Bai Li Shao's body. In my daze, I answered randomly, okay, I know what to do. At that time, Bai Li Heng heard me speak normally, and immediately felt that he was the chosen one. Even when his daughter, who had been stupid for decades, suddenly became normal, he did not feel anything unusual. Then, I woke up and found myself Bai Li Du. Life is truly unpredictable. the small intestine covers the large intestine. Give this document to His Majesty. After giving the order to the secret guard, I lay down with peace of mind. It would be more reassuring to leave these headaches to the tyrant with a high IQ to handle. Your Majesty, tonight is a night of chaos. His Majesty summoned people to sleep in Qianqing Palace. The secret guard turned back to report outside the door. This tyrant really acted quickly. He had just confirmed that I was not poisoned and he already wanted to do adult things. I hurriedly packed up the important things, carrying big and small bags over there. On the way, I met Emo de Sien. Your Majesty, who is this? I signaled to her and said softly, "Shh! These are all the things I need to do the mission." Emo de Sien's face was radiant. Wait for the Empress to return successfully. I approached Emo de Sien, holding her face. You have to look carefully. This is the last time you will see me. I have looked carefully. The Empress can see that you are blessed. Tonight's mission will definitely be completed well. I shook my head, picked up the package on the ground. Auntie, if you have something to do, you must do it tonight. Because if you don't do it, you won't have another chance in the future. After saying that, I turned my head, leaving Emo de Sien with a mysterious and unpredictable back. When we arrived at the Qianqing Palace, the tyrant was already lying on the bed. For a moment, it felt like I had returned to the time when I was a dog. The tyrant, like now, lay down first and then placed me on his stomach to play with me. Sniff, tears involuntarily flowed from the corner of my mouth. After wiping away the unknown liquid on my mouth, I hurriedly took off all my clothes and threw myself on top. Before I could get close, the tyrant used a blanket to wrap me up. Just sleep, don't think about anything else. I pouted, unhappy. Today was another day I couldn't sleep with the tyrant. The tyrant hugged me and the blanket into his arms and said, "Tomorrow you still have to wake up early to handle official business." The distance was so close, the pure scent that penetrated deep into my heart was like a demon, constantly alluring me. Come here, smell me. Unable to bear it any longer, I directly pressed myself on the tyrant's body, leaned my face close to his and sniffed randomly. I sniffed. At this moment, I looked like I was drinking milk tea, trying to suck out the last pearl. The tyrant wrapped his arms around my waist, letting me play around. Satisfied, I left him and asked curiously, "Does father have urgent matters today?" The tyrant skillfully took out a handkerchief beside him and wiped the remaining drool on his face. The harem is not allowed to interfere in state affairs. All right. I found a comfortable position and prepared to sleep. You just need to be a happy, useless person. I'll handle the rest. The tyrant really knew how to talk. He hit my bullseye. While I was shyly hiding in the blanket waiting for his next sweet words, I heard steady breathing from beside me. Are you asleep? I lifted the blanket, kissed the tyrant's beautiful Adam's apple lightly, raised my head to look at him, and he didn't react. He was really tired. I thought, it seems that recently the tyrant is not intentionally avoiding me, but has to deal with the matter of Bok Lai Hang and Mac Dac Kong day and night. After all, to eliminate two great powers at the same time, using force alone is not enough, there must also be a plan. The plan with the least risk is to make them fight each other. This is the 108th time I have let out this vulgar laugh. There is nothing else, it's just that tonight will be my wedding night. The tyrant has promised, the day I ascend the throne as empress is also the day I will have my wedding night with him. Looking at Bai Mo Wu's charming face and body that I have long coveted, I hastily nodded. Tonight, the tyrant will not be able to escape my five-finger mountain. I raised my hand and made a take gesture, making the palace maid think I wanted to take the comb. She carefully put away the comb, her voice respectful. Your Majesty, you are not allowed to touch this comb today. The great 10 kingdoms have a custom, on the wedding day the bride is not allowed to touch the comb, her hair must be combed and blessed by a relative before she can leave the house. Speaking of relatives, after that meeting with the tyrant, Bai Li Heng no longer existed. That day, Bai Li Heng went to find the tyrant, mainly talking about how he colluded with Mo de Kong to plot power, and then how he lost his mind and usurped the throne. The entire process was revealed. Of course, he took the initiative to speak out with conditions, that is, hoping that Bai Mo Wu could spare his family. He offered to die to atone for his sins. He did this not because he was thinking of me, but because he was afraid that his Bai Li family would die out. As expected of a 1,000-year-old fox, he knew when to stop to avoid the most harm. But who was the tyrant? The crime is necessary, don't even hope to escape a single one. The usurper must exterminate his entire family. But considering Bai Li Heng's confession, the tyrant reluctantly agreed to let me live. I was so amused that when Bai Li Heng heard the news, he fainted on the spot. That night, all those who participated in the usurpation were chopped into pieces and fed to the dogs, a pack of Tibetan mastiffs imported from the neighboring country. The families of the usurpers were not exterminated, all were exiled to barren lands. I rested my chin on my hand. In this great 10 kingdoms, I only had the tyrant as my relative. Missing the tyrant came. He walked in wearing a crimson dragon robe. I will comb the empress's hair. Today, the tyrant looked very appetizing. Under the crimson color, he looked like a cake that I was about to open. He picked up a comb, not too skillfully combing it up and down. Looking at his appearance, it was highly likely that he was not very good at that matter either. Fortunately, I had prepared many treasures in that area for Bai Mo Wu to conveniently study. The tyrant behind shook his hand, then continued combing as if nothing had happened. But I noticed in the bronze mirror that the tyrant's earlobes were red. After brushing his teeth, Bai Mo Wu held my hand and walked out of the main hall, accepting everyone's kneeling. As soon as he appeared, loud cheers rang out in unison. Long live the emperor, long live, long live, long live the empress. Long live the emperor, long live, long live, long live, long live the empress. The grand ceremony was over. The tyrant was about to go to the imperial study to write the Jade Edict, when I grabbed his hand and pulled him into the bedroom. He raised his head, somewhat reluctantly, not lacking at this time. I mumbled in response. Lacking. According to the records, from the day Bai Li Shao was crowned empress, Bai Mo Wu had not attended court for 9 days.